I've got D here today, and we're going to practice what we've been preaching, and this week's been all about unlocking the horse's rib cage using serpentines. You can do so many different variety of serpentines depending on the size of your arena. This arena here is a 20 by 40, so a nice large arena. It's got good surface on it, and you can do like a 2-loop, 3-loop, 4-loop. We're going to start with a 3-loop serpentine, and we've actually set up some cones and markers for you, and you can use these as reference points to plan out your serpentine. So you can see if you've got crates, or if you don't have access to cones, you can use a crate. And these are just markers for us for when we're doing our serpentine to ensure we're accurate as we're doing it. Doesn't matter which direction you start with the serpentine. A lot of us, we start at A, and then we start our first loop, and then you go in between the poles, around the crate, between the second set of poles, you do your second loop around the cone, and then you go into your third set of poles in the middle. You don't have to use the poles, they're just there as markers. They're there to keep us straight and to ensure we're hitting that center line as we then change direction and go to the other side of the loop. Let's go. One of the common things people misshoot is with the serpentines is they overshoot the loop. And we're going to watch how this can easily be done. We've got Sue and Jackson here, and as you come around here, just look at what not to do when you're doing your serpentine. So there, we've completely overshot, and then you're not straight coming between the poles. And that's quite a common thing with the serpentine. And the way to avoid this is by either putting these markers down. So you can see here she went inside the crate when we should have gone around the crate, and then again made the loop too large, and then has got to try and keep him straight again to find that center line. This is quite a common thing that we can do, and we don't plan our route as riders. And again here, instead of going on the outside, she's cut the inside and then made the loop an awkward shape to then try and straighten him up again. So this is more like a wonky zigzag, which is fine, but for accuracy, especially from the dressage perspective, we need to plan our route. And that's why we have the cones and we have the poles, so we can keep everything as straight as possible, and accuracy. Accuracy is key. Now we're going to see how to do this correctly. So again, we're starting off from C, and we're going to turn left. Make sure your horse leaves the track, making sure the loop is a nice size between the poles, as straight as possible, changing direction now. A little bit of inside leg, and you want him to go around the crate. Remember, we're using these markers just for accuracy to help. This ensures you touch the side of the track before going down the other line of poles in between the middle. And that's how to do a correct loop with your serpentines. Good. I'm going to ride through, and I'm going to talk to you about what's going on in my mind as the rider as I'm planning for the route, because at the end of the day, this serpentine really brings out your accuracy as the rider and how far ahead you're thinking of your next move. So try and visualize the path. Obviously we've got the help of the cones and the poles today, but in your dressage test you wouldn't have the cones and the markers there. So normally in a test they start at A or C. We're going to start at A, just in walk. And I'm ready now as the rider, looking at where my loop and where I'm going to ask for a bend. So I'm going to touch the track here at K, and I'm looking over my right shoulder, a little bit of inside flexion, inside leg through the rib cage. Now this is where I'm going as straight as I can. And now I'm looking to the left, a little bit of inside flexion again, a little bit of bend through the rib cage. Planning my loop. I'm going to touch the side of the track. Again, now I'm looking at E, and I'm going to get as straight as I can through the horse's body. And the minute I touch the center line, looking a little bit to the right, a little bit of weight down my right leg, my right seat bone. I'm going to touch the track at, and then I'm going to turn right. I'm going to repeat the same thing again. And these markers, these poles really do help with my straightness as I hit the center line, and every time I change direction I'm using my body weight, I'm using a little bit of rein contact and leg through my seat. So I'm going to do it one more time, and then we're going to progress to the trot. So again, straight away I'm planning my route, thinking about where I want that line to be. Touch the track just after H, and I'm going to turn to the left. I've got a little bit of left bend here. I'm going to straighten him up between the poles, and as I hit the center line, look to the right, a little bit of inside bend, a little bit of moving the rib cage away from my right leg, touch the track again, and then plan my route as straight as I can be. This EB line needs to be dead straight, and then look to the left. This is the level of left bend, so through the rib cage to the left. Yeah, lovely. We're now going to do the serpentine in the trot. The rhythm here is a little bit too quick, and you'll see what happens if you do this too quick. It's going to turn into a square, and she's overshooting completely. And this means that the rhythm is very, very rushed, inconsistent. You can tell there she's almost squaring it. He's rushing onto his forehand and he's struggling. So this shows why you have to think ahead and you have to plan your routes so carefully as the rider. Now we're going to see Sue do the same exercise, but how it should be done. So we're going to slow that rhythm down. We're going to really plan our route and think about when to do our turns so that we're not overshooting and riding a square. Now that is so much better than before. The rhythm is a little bit slower, she changes the rein, and now you can see how he's taking the turns beautifully instead of rushing and being inconsistent. She's a lot straighter down here, and when she takes her loop, she uses the cone to help guide her around the exercise. And I'm going to ride the exercise through, but this time I'm going to add in a downward transition to walk. So for those horses that do tend to rush, get a little bit heavy on the forehand, just add in some downward transitions before you change the rein. You kind of have to plan ahead of time with these downward transitions. Walk for 2 or 3 steps before you change the rein. For me, this really helps with my accuracy, but it also helps my horse and avoids the rushing or avoid him coming onto the forehand. So I'm actually just going to repeat that same process, but this time I'm going to add in a halt. So I'm actually going to walk a bit before. I'm going to halt, good man, and then into a trot. So see how we can advance the same pattern with just adding in some downward transitions and upward transitions. This again helps with my horse's balance and avoids him coming too heavy onto the forehand. Good man. Good boy.